Hasn't it ever happened to you that you think you know about something and immediately you realize you actually don't? Well, that happened to me, and so that today I'm going to talk about Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji, or Fujiyama in Japanese, is one of those special places on planet Earth and a very important symbol in the collective imagination of the human species, especially within the Japanese culture. But apart from its large dimensions, what makes it so important and magical? Why does this volcano have an important mythological and spiritual aura? Today, we will review 5 of the most important stories of this sacred mountain. The story of Konohana Sakuyahime, the goddess of the flowers and Mount Fuji, is one of the most well-known legends. According to Japanese mythology, Konohana Sakuyahime was the goddess who resided on Mount Fuji. She was married to Kami Yamato Kami, a mountain god, and their marriage was marked by the beauty and fragility of the flowers she represented. Legend has it that at the birth of their son, Honokanayama, her husband did not believe her to be a faithful wife and suspected that the child was not his. To prove her faithfulness, the goddess asked the gods to place her in a hut built of wood, where she would give birth. During childbirth, she asked that the flames be lit in the hut and the doors be closed. The woman, demonstrating her purity and faith, gave birth without being affected by the flames, and her son was born healthy and strong. This myth was interpreted as a manifestation of the power of the mountain itself, which is majestic and resistant. It is not a myth that if you subscribe to my channel, you help me incredibly to fulfill my dream of making a living from my art. Don't hesitate, it's completely free. During Japan's feudal era in the 16th century, Mount Fuji was considered a sacred place of pilgrimage. Legend has it that in times of war, a group of young samurai from a warrior clan was sent on a mission to Mount Fuji. However, they faced terrible cold conditions and winter storms on their journey to the summit. As a symbol of bravery and sacrifice, the young samurai decided to face their destiny, and to ensure that the soul of their clan was protected, they sacrificed themselves by throwing themselves into the crater of the volcano. Legend has it that because of their sacrifice, their spirits protect Mount Fuji and those who climb it with respect and devotion. Let me remind you that every drawing you see me creating on my channel, you have it available in my online store. You can find the link in the description or in the comment box. You may not be a samurai, but buying my art is not a sacrifice. Although Mount Fuji has been considered a sacred site for centuries, its ascent was not a common practice until long after the first historical records began to document the act. The first documented ascent of Mount Fuji dates back to the 7th century, in 663 AD. This is a fascinating story that shows how Mount Fuji throughout history has been a symbol of spirituality and human challenge. At the time, Mount Fuji was considered a mountain of gods, and the ascent was made for spiritual and religious purposes. Those who ascended to its summit were said to purify their souls, and many Buddhist monks attempted to reach the summit to be closer to the gods and gain enlightenment. The first documented ascent of Mount Fuji was made by a monk named Gyoya, a famous Japanese ascetic and founder of the Shingon school of esotericism. Gyoya was known for his extreme meditation practices, and many consider him one of the first historical figures to challenge Mount Fuji for a religious purpose. In 663, Nagoya climbed Mount Fuji as part of a purification and meditation ritual. According to the chronicles, he spent several days on the peak, performing prayers and seeking closer contact with the spiritual world. The monk not only climbed as a form of physical ascent, but also performed rituals to invoke the protection of the mountain gods, an act very common in the Shinto religion, which associated mountains with divine presence. This act marked the beginning of a long tradition of ascents to Mount Fuji, which were seen not only as physical challenge, but as a deep spiritual quest. From that moment on, Mount Fuji began to attract thousands of pilgrims and ascetics, becoming a pilgrimage destination that spanned centuries. In fact, the practice of climbing Mount Fuji remained a part of Japanese culture and remains a popular tradition today, especially during the summer months when the trails are open to climbers. Enno Gyoya is also credited with founding a temple at the base of Mount Fuji as part of his religious practice, which helped cement the mountain's spiritual importance with Buddhism and Shinto. This temple was one of the first places of worship established around the mountain, and its influence endured through the centuries. The first documented ascent of Mount Fuji not only marked a milestone in Japan's religious history, but also established the mountain as an ancient symbol of spirituality and human endeavor. Today, Mount Fuji remains one of the most revered places in Japan and one of the most visited mountains in the world, with more than 300,000 people climbing each year. In ancient Japan, the story was told of Jamawa, a mythological figure well known in Japanese legends. According to tradition, Jamawa lived in the mountains, especially in the vicinity of Mount Fuji, where she was said to live an isolated life in a secluded hut. Jamawa was known to be a powerful witch, possessing great wisdom, but also a fearsome character. Although many legends about Jamawa vary, one of the most popular stories tells that she used to lure travelers and pilgrims who, when lost in the mountains of Mount Fuji, would fall into her traps. She would welcome them into her hut, offering them food and shelter, but her real intention was to guilt them in order to feed on them or keep them as prisoners. However, there was also a rumor that Jamawa had a kind heart deep down, and that if someone managed to gain her trust, she would grant them great magical power or help them escape from Mount Fuji. The legend of Jamawa reflects the fears and myths surrounding mountains and inaccessible places. The peaks of Mount Fuji, being so high and often shrouded in clouds, were considered mysterious territories inhabited by supernatural beings. In this story, Jamawa embodies the duality of the mountain, a place full of beauty and mystery, but also of unknown dangers. In addition, Jamawa is associated with Japanese folklore culture, where it often represents wild nature and ancient spirits, which are both wise and dangerous. This legend is linked to the mysticism surrounding Mount Fuji and the fascination of the Japanese with the beings that inhabit their sacred mountains. The last eruption of Mount Fuji occurred between 1707 and 1708 during the Edo period, and is known as the Hoei eruption because it took place during the Hoei year in the Japanese calendar. This eruption was significant and left a great impact on the region. The Hoei eruption was triggered by a very strong earthquake that occurred in the Kanto region in October 1707. The earthquake, which had a magnitude of about 8.6, may have triggered volcanic activity of Mount Fuji. Although the earthquake occurred several weeks before the eruption, it is believed that its energy was sufficient to activate the volcano. The eruption was of the explosive and basaltic type and produced a large amount of volcano ash which covered large areas near Mount Fuji. The ash affected not only the surrounding areas but also distant areas such as Tokyo, at the time Edo, causing problems in agriculture and daily life. The eruption of Mount Fuji was not a single event, but extended over several months. It is known to have continued until February 1708. During this time, the volcano emitted large quantities of lava and toxic gases. The Hoei eruption had serious consequences for nearby populations. Ashfall on rice fields and other crops caused serious damage to agriculture, resulting in food shortage. In some areas, the layer of ash was so thick that people had difficulty seeing and breathing. There was also a great loss of livestock. During the eruption, a crater formed in the southern part of Mount Fuji, known as the Hoei crater, which is visible today. This crater has a diameter of approximately 500 meters, around 640 feet. In Edo, present-day Tokyo, the ashfall was so intense that many people had to take shelter indoors to avoid inhaling the volcanic particles. In addition, nearby rivers filled with ash, making it difficult to supply drinking water. The Hoei eruption also left an imprint on popular culture. Throughout history, the eruption has been mentioned in various Japanese literary works and legends, as it was considered an event of great significance. After the eruption, Mount Fuji has remained relatively quiet, without a significant eruption, which has led most people to consider the volcano as dormant. However, it is still an active volcano, and scientists closely monitor signs of seismic or volcano activity in the area. I really hope you enjoyed this little approach to the folklore of Japan's most famous mountain. In the future, I might make another video with more stories and curiosities about Fujiyama if I see that you liked it. Don't be shy and let me know your thoughts on the comment sections. I really want to create a great community of curious minds around the world. See you in the next video. Thanks and see you soon.